Hi guys, Bolt here. Today the open beta releases. It is going to be playable for everyone. There will be 6 maps that you can play 5 versus 5 multiplayer matches on. There won't be single player in this version, in this open beta, but the final game will include single player campaigns and also mission makers. So we get to make our own missions that we can then post on the workshop in order for others to enjoy. Now, before you dive into a multiplayer game, you have to build a deck. And a deck is basically a collection of units that you want to take to battle. And in order to create one, you click on Create Battlegroup. Then you can either play as Russia and or America at the moment of writing. If you click on Russia, we can combine the VDV brigade and the tank, the guard tank brigade, because they're the only 2 specializations right now. There will be more added, but to create your battle group, you have to combine 2 of them. So in this case, if we click on the VDV brigade, we can see that we can have 750 points spent on recon, 1000 on infantry, 500 on vehicle, and so on. But if we add the guard tank brigade, we get additional points. Now you notice that helicopter and aircraft doesn't really change with the tank brigade, which kind of makes sense. Now if you go for America, the same is true here. So you have the set points per specialization, and if you combine it, you also combine the points. So we're going to be going for Russia this time, and we already built a deck that has been battle tested and also optimized with the help of Noise Guy, who will be posting a lot of Tarkov videos himself. So if you want multiple people to follow, I would recommend his channel as well, linked down below. So the point of this video and this battle group is to give you guys a good foundation to start with, because for a lot of people, they're probably going to build the battle groups, no offense, in the wrong way, because it's a really new way of building battle groups, or decks, however you want to call it. So before, you would bring all of the infantry that you would ever use or hope to use during a battle with enough supplies or transports for each squad of infantry. Now, in Broken Arrow, since units that are lost in battle respawn over a given amount of time, you don't need to like max out every single unit. You don't need to take, 8 of these Sarmats and 8 of these BRMs. You can do so, but, it's gonna cost you a lot of points. And if you don't rush them towards the enemy every given moment that you have, you should be fine with a couple of these instead, and you can spend points elsewhere. So what we have done is we have put the sniper teams on foot. We put sniper teams on foot. Now, you would think, well, moving it to the front line is gonna take ages, and that is correct. But we don't need to put every unit in a vehicle. Vehicles can be interchangeable. So this BMD-2 that has a capacity of 5 can be used to transport snipers and the Spetsnaz and other infantry that doesn't exceed the capacity of the BMD-2. So that is really cool. So you only really need a couple of vehicles. Now we went for this setup because we also have helicopters that we can transport infantry with. So for example, you could start off with VDV Razvedka, send 1 to each flank, sell the BMD-2s, and then bring other units as well with the BMD-2s. Or you can go for VDV Spetsnaz and BMD-2s, or sniper teams and BMD-2s. Then we also have some Sarmats, and these are just Jeeps with the AGS-30, so a grenade launcher on top. We have 4 of these, really good at just harassing the opponents. And they kind of cause like a panic on the front line. When you just fast move these towards the enemy at the beginning of a game, they might panic unload their units, and you kind of destabilize the front line quite a bit that way. Now the grenade launcher can fire at vehicles as well, so that is one thing. It probably won't do much damage to like medium or heavily armored units, but it's still gonna do some, it's still gonna stun them a little bit. But lightly armored vehicles, definitely gonna do some damage, especially infantry. Now here we can see all the stats. So it has HP of 10, it has 1700 meters range optics, it moves really quick, 130 forwards and 35 backwards, and we can just call that kilometers per hour to simplify it. And it's airborne, or it can be dropped by an airplane, like a big old helicopter or an IL-76. Last but not least, we have the BRM 3K57. Now this thing comes stock with a cord. So if you go for the cheapest version you can, you get a turret that is basically a cord. You can go for an autocannon if you want, and you can get the base armor. But if you upgrade it completely, you turn into a Terminator. We have the Attacca ATGMs. These are amazing. We have the PKT, which is a decent machine gun, but most importantly, you get the 57mm. This thing is a beast. It's going to do a lot of damage. It can also fire at helicopters, and let me tell you, autocannons against helicopters are really, really effective. And we have 4 of those, and that brings us to a total of 1480 points. Now you can mix and match whatever you want. You could take some drones if you want, but from my experience, these are shot down really, really quick. But actually, let's put some drones in here, just to just to have a play with them a little bit. And we can actually put an Orion there, perhaps 2, and that leaves us with 35 points total that we can spend on upgrades. So that's probably not going to work unless we only go for upgraded optics. Let's get maybe 1 less Sarmat so we can get some weapons on this. It's probably not worth it, but I just want to try out the performance of these. So let's get some Vickers on this. And as you can see, we're 5 points short at this point. So the Vickers, probably not a good idea. We're going to go for Cornets instead. And we'll just play around with it. It's 100 points, quite expensive. So you really don't want to move this really far up the front line. Okay, so let's move with the infantry. We don't have a lot of different types of infantry here, and simply because you don't need it. Trust us on this. I have tried the VDV, I have tried the AGS-30. They're really good at deleting infantry, but they get deleted themselves really, really quick as well. The Metis teams, for example, are nice on paper, but they don't really have the capacity to defend themselves. They need a lot of units to help defend these guys, so they need a lot of additional support. It is really, really good as a support unit on its own because you have a Cord and you have that Metis, which can fire at vehicles at 1100 meters range. So it's a really, really good unit to use, but you would definitely have to focus many, many points to support to reinforce this squad. Okay, so we went for kind of a self-sufficient type of setup here. So we have the Guardia Monostrellici, and the infantry itself is decent. 8-man squad with 32 HP, 5 armor. They have smoke, they can also sprint. They have 2 PKPs, which is great on its own. They have a good RPG. 1000mm penetration against heat armor, so that is actually really good. They have the underbarrel grenade launcher and 6 AKs. And they come in the T15 Barbarus that we have fully upgraded to include a 57mm, which will delete units. And since there is now also a vehicle tab in the game, when the game is launched, you're in multiplayer, you're playing a match, you can actually just call in the T15 as well, so it's not infantry bound. There's no infantry tax on the T15. Okay, so we just went for the Kinzhal module. The regular one is the Boomerang with the 30mm and the Cornets. The Kinzhal basically has the Attack ATGM instead of the Cornet ATGMs, which is just vastly superior. So we went for that instead. Then we have Iglas. We just maxed out the amount of Iglas we can take in Skrejets. But then we have the best of both worlds. These guys have the Igla, which isn't, it's actually pretty good. But you have to remember, these squads need supplies. They only carry 3 Igla missiles. So you definitely want to keep these guys supplied. And together with the Skrejet, that we've also upgraded to include Iglas, you actually have a pretty decent anti-air unit. Now note that we went for 4 T-15s because they're just really, really insane, but only 2 Skrejets, and there's a pretty good reason for this. 1 Skrejet can house 10 soldiers. 1 Igla team is 5 men, so you can put 2 Iglas in 1 Skrejet. Then we have Cornets. We do need ATGMs in this game. ATGMs reign supreme. We have 2 Cornet launchers and 6 ATGMs in total. And you can also go for a cheaper one, which has the regular Cornet, but we went for the Cornet M. And we put these guys in a BTR-RD robot, which on its own has Cornet M ATGMs. So that way you can mix and match. If you're more of an airborne player, you can get them in MI8s, but it's quite expensive. And helicopters and planes are really easy to shoot down if they're not really microed well. And I can guarantee you that micro is going to be a big thing, especially early in the multiplayer beta. So make it easier for yourself and just get a mix. Get some airborne units, but ground units are in general just a safer bet in games like these. Now you can see that we are 45 points short. So yeah, we can't really spend it in this case. The cheapest thing is 60 points. So you could put the Cornet on foot, for example, which will save you 55 points, and then you can get something else. But you can, yeah, you can do that yourself. How about you do that yourself? So, for example, actually, let's do this. See, too expensive. So we have to get him on foot if we want it. Yeah, we're literally 10 points short. That kind of sucks. That would have been cool. Yeah, we'll just get this guy. There we go. Actually, hold on a minute. Now we're 50 points. Yeah, no, that's not gonna work. Yeah, that way you can play around with these battle groups. Okay, so in the support tab, we have kind of a layered anti-air system going on. So the Buck M3s have been decent at shooting down planes. They're actually not that bad at all. And you can upgrade them from a Buck M2 to a Buck M3, increasing the range. The blast radius is decreased, but the range is increased. But you also have to take into consideration the supplies that it takes. So the Buck M2 supply cost is 150 for 4 missiles. The Buck M3 is 200 for 6 missiles. So things like this will also eat up your supplies quite a bit. And the speed of the missile is actually noted as well. So this is 700, let's say kilometers per hour. And then the Buck M3 is 800. Now, besides that, we also have some infrared anti-air. So we have the Cessna with the Cessna. Well, we had the Strela, but we put the Cessna weapon package on it, which upgrades the ground-to-air missiles. So the Strela having a range of 200 of a minimum to 2200. The Cessna has 2400. And the cool thing is, it tells you all of the types of missiles that it has. So it's a passive seeker, so no radar on this thing, which is great. Because one thing that has been just destroying me completely has been radiation seeking missiles, so seed missiles. The cool thing is, it can also target missiles. So incoming missiles can be targeted by this, such as cruise missiles. It can target helicopters and airplanes. It's just a really good frontline AA unit to have. Now besides that, we also have a Panzer. So we take the Tunguska M, we upgrade it with the Panzer S1, we can upgrade it with the Tunguska M1 as well, but we just went overboard with this thing, giving us 2 Gatling guns, and we get these really good ground-to-air missiles. But this thing is radar, so you definitely want to keep the radar off, unless you want to get seeded every other minute, and turn it on when you actually see a target that is worth turning the radar on for. And that's basically the radar in the back there. Really cool how the animation actually shows the radar dish, you know, moving up and then starting spinning. Now besides that, we also have the Dere Fazia. Now this is also a radar-based anti-air. You don't need to turn on the radar for it to be an actual functional thing, so that is good to remember. But it can also be highly accurate when you turn on the radar and absolutely destroy helicopters. So you can see that it can also target ground vehicles, but mainly it is to target infantry, well, pretty much anything. Vehicles that are not too heavily armored, helicopters, missiles, and airplanes. And you can upgrade this to also include Cessna missiles, but we just went for the 57mm to have some cannons on the front line and to keep it relatively cheap. Now in terms of supplies, we have 2 Kamaz VDV trucks. They can carry 3000 supplies each. And for artillery, we have the TOS-1A, the Buratino. This thing is going to delete whatever you fire at, basically. Now you might think that is not a lot of supplies. Well, we have helicopters. The Mi-26. This thing is an apartment complex sized helicopter. It's absolutely going to take care of all of your supply needs and also big ol', you know, airdrop needs if you want a helicopter in a lot of infantry. Together with vehicles, you can also put a vehicle in here, and supplies. So you can basically put in some infantry, a vehicle or two, like the Sarmats, and then a couple of, couple tons of supplies, and you're good to go. Besides that, we have the Mi-28 NM. This is our main kind of attack helicopter that we have, or that we have built for this battle group. It has a 30mm, and it has 8 laser designatable Lemur ATGMs. These are fire and forget. You fire it, you forget about it, it's gonna move towards the enemy. And you can laser designate targets, and these will with pinpoint accuracy basically annihilate whatever you're laser designating. We have one of those. Then we have a couple of other helicopters. The Mi-28N, and this is thanks to the input of Noise Guy. This is basically a bait helicopter. 150 points, you keep it close to the front line. If a plane comes in to engage it, and you destroy the plane, that basically means 350 points destroyed for a loss of 150. That's a win already. And even if it doesn't destroy it, because there's a pretty good chance that the plane is gonna miss if you use your countermeasures and your flares and stuff, that's even a bigger win. So it's a really good bait helicopter when someone sees an Mi-28. They might think it's completely decked out with more rockets, with iglas and attackers, and you know, all of that, all the bells and whistles, and they might sacrifice a plane for it. And the same is true for this Mi-35M. We have put rockets on it, so you do give him some weapons. We basically just gave him rockets to help on the front line, not too expensive, so not too really risky. And we have given this one some more defensive capabilities, so protection. And as you can see here, right now we only have flares, electronic countermeasures. If we upgrade it, we also get a jammer. So this decreases the accuracy of incoming missiles towards this helicopter, which is great to have. Now besides that, we also have airplanes. We have the Su-57, and the main job of this plane is to take out enemy radar AA. It has 4 radiation-seeking missiles, and you basically keep this relatively close to the front line, but not that close that it's gonna get fired at, because the range is 5 kilometers on the seed missiles, so you really don't need to keep it close to the front line. And besides that, it always comes with R-73 air-to-air missiles, so you can actually defend yourself. So pay attention to what it comes with stock, because not everything is listed in the customization. So these are the things you can customize, but it always has some stock weapons, such as the cannon, for example. Then we have the Tu-160, literally because we just want to test out these big old bombs, the Fab 9000s. That is the only reason I have this in here. Otherwise, I would probably go for something like an Su-35, probably with a lot of air-to-air missiles. So this is a really expensive version. This is absolutely going to dominate the skies, but it is very expensive. So, you know, maybe downgrade a couple of these. That is 6 R-77s, which are long range, and an R-37 is even longer range, and an R-73 is close range. So you have an absolute beast of a plane. But honestly, I just want to test out this thing. Otherwise, I would do that and give you an air superiority fighter. Now, last but not least, we have the Su-25, the Su-25T. And the stock weapons on this are the 16 Vickers. So pay attention to that. It already has 16 ATGMs. Okay? And what we've done to this plane is give it rockets. So we've given it 2 fuel tanks, basically because we just have some, you know, we want to keep it around longer. And we've given it the S-25 rockets. So we have 2 rocket pods, 1 on each side, to basically help with blasting some lightly armored units. Everything else is kept empty. The optics, we went for the basic at first, but since we have points, we can actually upgrade this thing a little bit more. We can't unfortunately go for more Su-57s, so we can actually do some optimizations here. So outer pylons, we also don't want to make it too expensive, right? So that is also really, really important. So let's get more S-25s without making it a crazy plane, and we can actually get ECM pods as well. That might help. Yeah, let's go with that. That is actually pretty decent. We have used up most of our points. We're gonna save it. So that is really it. So this is a pretty good deck to start with the exception of the Tu-160. You're probably gonna lose it, but you could swap that out for an Su-35 with, you know, kind of a loadout like this. Make it a bit cheaper by getting like a fuel tank and maybe a cheaper kind of loadout like this and like that, giving you also some ECM pods to help against incoming missile evasion, and also makes it a bit cheaper. But that should help you get started with the Russian battle group that we can play with right now during the open beta of multiplayer of Broken Arrow. And I really hope to see all of you on the front line, and we are actually not done yet because we forgot about tanks. Tanks are quite basic, we almost forgot about it. Can you believe it? We have 3 T90 arenas. Now the arena, we did upgrade basically the armor package to the max, giving it arena APS, so incoming projectile defense, plus ERA armor, explosive reactive armor. So the base armor is like this, 800 and 1300 front. The ERA does not help with the frontal armor at all, based on kinetic or heat armor. but the sides are upgraded a little bit as well. So that's why we kind of went for that. And it's only 85 points for both, so you might as well get it. And it's your best tank in the game, pretty much. The Armadas, they are pretty good in-game as well, but they're such a magnet for big old bombs that they get taken out anyways. But we have put 2 of these Armadas in there as well. So besides that, the tanks have different types of ammunition as well, so you can also look into that kind of stuff. And you can see which unit it can fire at. So the HE obviously can also be fired at infantry. Now this tank, with all those systems, with the APS and arena, the arena APS, it can deploy 4 times against incoming projectiles, and it has 2 smoke screens that it can put down. So it doesn't fire, it basically, you know, it can deploy smoke twice, and that can actually save the life of your tank quite a bit. Now the T-14 Armada, obviously a really good tank. Now we can compare these two in terms of armor. So the Armadas on the left has more kinetic armor, more heat armor. On the front, also on the side. On the rear, better protection against heat. Top is pretty much the same, 20 more protection against heat. But yeah, that way you can also compare your units. In terms of cannon, it is a different cannon, so you have to keep that in mind. But as I said, it's an expensive unit. It's a magnet for a lot of incoming planes and ATGMs and all that, so use it very wisely. Use it defensive. Last but not least, we have Ripple firing Cornet vehicles. This thing is nuts. It fires 2 missiles at once. Okay, just imagine that. If you have 3 of these, that is 6 missiles that you're firing at an M1A3, M1A2 SEV3, not M1A3. And that tank is not going to have a good time. So if you have a couple of these spread around, getting a side shot possibly with one of them, that is going to be a bad time for NATO tanks there. 16 of these bad boys at 1600 meters range, 100mm heat penetration, going to absolutely annihilate anything. It is also amphibious, and it can be dropped by airplanes. So that is actually it. That is our Russian deck over 9000 because of the CAPT 9000. So I really hope that this is going to help you get started. If it did, like the video, subscribe down below what your favorite unit is so far with the Russian battle group, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Take care.